Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Ryan, the official host of Reddit Voice, and today we're going to be looking at some of the top stories from r/ProRevenge. Before we do, though, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to stay up to date on all the latest videos. The Case of a Missing Cupcakes. A Sparky's Tale. We had an older hospital where, over time, we'd been upgrading their CCTV, security, door access, and nurse call/paging systems. I'd been at this company for a few years, but they'd been doing all the Sparky work here for over a decade, so we knew the whole place real well. The buildings, the people, the staff's positions, and job roles, everything. I worked there a lot, so I got to know the drama, politics, and secret affairs, too. Also, voices carry into ceiling spaces. This has been a public service announcement. I got to lead a team into the building and maintaining each of these new systems. These systems had been chosen because they could all work together to achieve the client's needs, and were networked. They were also standalone because government IT didn't want the third-party gear on their networks. We had to install all the infrastructure and equipment. I had network hubs all over the place where I could access all 4 of these systems. Summary: I had admin/installer access to 170 plus cameras, over 520 doors/gates, the security system, and the hospital-wide paging systems. All names are changed, technical details have been simplified. One Tuesday. I was sitting at one of my network hubs doing regular testing/maintenance. I'd just been checking the CCTV, watching Janine do that lopsided, stumbling walk she does in high heels. I believed I'd done enough continuous work at 10 a.m. to deserve a treat. That morning, Nancy, a nurse in pediatrics, had brought cupcakes in for the ward staff. Nancy had kept 2 individually packaged cupcakes aside from me, clearly labeled with my name, in the ward staff room fridge. I walked in there about 5 minutes over to the ward, humming my "I'm about to have cupcakes" song. It's based on a Proclaimers track. Open the fridge. No cupcakes. I mean, there were maybe 20 still there in a big clear Tupperware container, but mine weren't. Not the ones Nancy set aside. Before I just lose my shit altogether and flip the effing fridge over, I'd better go check to see if something dire has happened. Maybe one of the kids needed these particular cupcakes to stay alive. Maybe these 2 cupcakes saved the planet. Work is forgotten and the investigation begins. I speak with Nancy. First, I ask if she saw that Janine was wearing high heels again. We both have a chuckle, and then I bring up the cupcake situation. We go through the whole "they were there before" and the checking of the fridge, so Nancy can confirm my story. It's like she doesn't understand that I wouldn't joke about this. We begin interviews. No one on the ward is zoning up. We believe them. Someone, not of this ward, has taken my cupcakes. The pediatrics nurses are livid. Myself and my team want answers. It's a funny thing, once cameras and swipe card doors have been in a while, people forget all about them. Forget that they're always watched. Forget that the doors have logs to see who went where and when. Forget who put them all in. Back to the hub I go. A quick audit of door access reveals that Jerry went in the staff room between the relevant times. Not yet, don't lose your ever-loving shit just yet. Do the due diligence. Checking the CCTV, I see Jerry's walking out of the staff room carrying a bag, wiping his mouth. Rewind, pause, zoom in. Frosting. The hub's rack did nothing wrong, so I step back and stare at the wall. The first 8 thoughts get caught by the filter. I calm down a little and head back to my nurses. They see me coming and gather. Sick kids are an afterthought in this matter. I tell them I know who did it. I don't want to say who just yet, just need some time to think and ask if we can keep this all hush-hush for now. They say they understand and immediately ask who it was. They are all government staff. I head back to the hub to continue work, not walking 500 miles to eat cupcakes anymore. As I'm swiping my card across the reader, in that 1 second it takes the red light to turn green, a plan starts to play like a cinematic in my head. It's like my subconscious has known about this day for ages, and is now premiering its devious feature. It screens the permutations, possible flaws, ramifications. I'm not sure how long I stared at the floor, rewinding, pausing, fast-forwarding. The plan is beautiful, and I promise my brain a cupcake soon. Jerry. Jerry was a general orderly who was supposed to float around the whole hospital, helping any ward and pretty much anyone who else paged him. He didn't though. Jerry didn't like walking around. Jerry was lazy and didn't like patients. He used to work in other wards, but couldn't find one without close supervision or patience, so he moved to day shift general duties. Jerry hated to be made to walk from one end of the hospital to the other, and Jerry effing hated the swipe cards in the electronic door locks. Some people just don't get technology. Some people just hate change and love to complain about it, while not taking the effort to learn how to work it. While responding to maintenance tickets, I had listened to Jerry whine numerous times about doors. For this and other reasons, I did not like Jerry. Jerry knew my distinctive name, knew what I did there, saw the other 20 cupcakes, and ate mine anyway. Yeah, time to fuck with Jerry. At the hub, I make the necessary improvements to my systems, select a variety of well-chosen doors, set auto-paging for different events, create different calendars, set some automated conditions so everything's swapped and changed around. Once I'm set up, with the program on hold, I go to see Nancy. I need to give Jerry a chance to own up, even though I'm pretty sure he won't. I ask Nancy to page Jerry so she can ask him about the cupcakes. Nancy isn't surprised it's Jerry and is on board. The other nurses gather and ask what's happening. I tell them that Jerry's about to work off some of the belly. They aren't surprised it's Jerry either and swear secrecy. I walk to the maintenance manager's office while Nancy summons Jerry. I go to maintenance manager's office grinning. All he says is, "What?" with a smile. He knows me. We've worked closely together here for a while. We're mates and he's seen that look on my face before. I ask him to just print any maintenance tickets generated by Jerry for card/door/gate/pager issues, but do not to action them. I'll pick them up while I'm here doing other work and deal with them personally. When I tell him about the cupcakes and my plan, he's not only on board, he laughs so hard he has a coughing fit for about 25 seconds. I head back to check in with Nancy and find that Jerry has ever so accommodatingly denied all knowledge. What I'd created in my system was a randomized intermittent program, all focused on Jerry's card. A program that would send Jerry's pager a message to go somewhere on the other side of the complex, seemingly at random based on Jerry swiping his card at particular doors, or gate to staff car park when wouldn't work, or his card wouldn't stop working, making him go to get it revalidated, or a siren would sound for a few seconds when he entered certain rooms. I already knew all the staff routines and areas of responsibility. The patients wouldn't be adversely impacted, and Jerry did fuck all anyway. Back to the hub, I clicked the go buttons. Week 1. By Friday afternoon in 4 days, Jerry had raised 18 tickets. I grabbed the stack of paper from the maintenance manager and went to the orderly's office to find Jerry. While I gently fanned the tickets, he listed all the weird things he'd been experiencing. He was explaining how the duty nurses were getting annoyed at his unexpected arrivals. When I interrupted him to ask if he'd seen anyone take my cupcakes from the pediatrics frizz on Tuesday, the puzzled face he put on was a head shorter than mine, and about 1M/3 sorry guys that's vaunted weird, away from the embroidered name on my shirt. No confession. I'd only had 50 specially selected doors active in the program these past 4 days. That Friday afternoon, at the end of week 1, I clicked the All button and added the other 470 plus doors. Week 2. By midday Wednesday, there were only 6 tickets raised. I checked the system's logs and found out why. In just under 3 days, there'd been a mixture of over 85 events Jerry didn't have time to lodge tickets. When I spoke to Jerry that Wednesday, he demanded that I do my damn job and fix this stuff, and why hadn't I done it yet? No confession, no apology. Time for some head games. I told him I'd sort it out. When I went to check the systems that Wednesday midday, I stopped the program. On Friday morning, I turned it back on again. Week 3. I let it run Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I almost felt sorry for him this week when I was talking to him, and considered stopping the plan. Then I remembered why I didn't like him so much. The one thing I haven't mentioned yet is the staring at the door. I already knew Jerry was in the final stages of disciplinary management. This was the linchpin to the plot of the film that ran through my head. Remember before when I said I got to know the drama, politics, and secret affairs too? I knew that one of those disciplinary warnings, among other things, was for taking people's lunches on 4 occasions. And not because he needed to either. That's the reason the nurses and maintenance manager weren't surprised it was Jerry and were on board. They knew too. Everyone did. That was the reason why he didn't kick up a stink to his manager or confess. I didn't want to get him fired, just make him apologize. Cupcakes are serious business. The final week. Week 4, the program ran Monday and Tuesday. The plan was only ever going to be for a month or until Jerry confessed or apologized. Before this Tuesday, I'd had a chat to Nancy. I'd asked her if she wouldn't mind a cameo and a little vignette. She understood and agreed. When I was talking with Jerry in the orderly's office, Nancy arrived and handed me a personalized pair of cupcakes that looked like, and were packaged, the exact same as the missing ones from a few weeks earlier. As Nancy was walking away, now silent, Jerry looked from the package to my shirt, then to me. I held up the tickets, mustered by my best Adam Hills, and said, "Don't be a dick, mate." He was silent and very angry. I could see he'd realized that I'd been doing this on purpose. If he'd made an official complaint, the missing cupcakes would come up and he'd lose his job. Also during our chats, he'd heard me say intermittent issues many, many times. Jerry was angry because he knew he couldn't do a effing thing about it. I walked off to the pediatrics ward where Nancy and I were going to eat these treats. I hummed my tune the whole way. Loose ends. Unfortunately, Jerry was a dick one more time. He got sacked 2 months later for taking more stuff out of a fridge. I felt bad for him as I helped security save the footage to a drive. As I was walking up to pediatrics on that last Tuesday of the plan, I stopped the program and took Jerry's pager number out of it. I had to scrap the program altogether a while later. Some bright hospital spark finally convinced government IT to add the systems to hospital's intranet. System admins are killjoys. Maybe rightfully so. Maybe. Janine continued to wear the 4-inch heels and off until she sprained her ankle. There's no show reel. Maintenance manager tried bribing me with Jack Daniels after this episode to add certain pager numbers to the program. There's no way I could have done that. He's an evil, evil bastard. We drank the Jacks as he didn't want to watch a non-existent show reel. Nancy totally fancied me. I mean, after all, she's only human. Nancy didn't fancy me, I just wish she did. Thank you for reading. Glossary. Tupperware is a sealable plastic food storage system. If you want to royally piss your wife off, use one of the big containers and drain your engine oil. Pagers. Featured in Season 1 of The Wire, 2002. My favorite line of the show to quote is Omar Little. "A man gotta have a code." Great show. Voices and ceilings. Work both ways. Once, I was in an office building ceiling, fitting some supporting steel work for a thing. I cut my hand on some aircon dusk strapping, and too loudly said, "Ah, F it," from below. I'm sure it was probably much angrier than I'm saying it. And someone asked, "Are you okay?" The program. In the time it ran, Jerry generated 277 mixed events. I don't know how many extra kilometers he walked. Mess with my kids? That's gonna cost you a pretty penny. And get you in trouble with the law. So I've been an acquaintance, Richard, who has always been of the "I know better than you" school of a thought. What makes it worse is that he literally received his PhD in physics from one of my country's top universities about 6 months ago, so he's not a dummy. The problem is that he thinks that because he's a physics genius, that means he knows better than everyone about everything. Just an example, my kids are in Montessori schools. This is a decision my wife and I reached together, and we're very happy with it. When he heard, he went on a 30-minute rant/lecture about how we're throwing our money away and how Montessori is nonsense. When I told him that I read and even professionally translated studies proving the opposite and gave him some real-world examples, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Sergey Brin, Jeff Bezos, Larry Page, he still would not admit. He might not be 100% correct. not the subject of this revenge, but so you understand the person we're dealing with. Another thing that's important to note is that Richard does not have Asperger's or anything similar. We joke about this all the time, and he's been tested from here until next week. He's just a really smart, socially oblivious pain in the ass. Given all of the above, I try to limit my time with him, but unfortunately that isn't always possible, and last week we were both in the same group of Bray for a friend, Jack, who was visiting back home from overseas. I've known Jack since grade school, so we brought our families and made it more than just a long time no see type of thing. At some point later on in the afternoon, my eldest, awesome 10-year-old, came to me really sad and said she wanted to go home. When I asked her why, she said that Richard had just spent 15 minutes telling her that she shouldn't eat hot dogs because they're unhealthy, and he explained what went into hot dogs and what they're made out of. Awesome is not a vegetarian, knows that the beef and chicken she eats used to be live animals, and has never professed interest in vegetarianism. At the same time, when a kid's eating a hot dog, they don't care or want to know what's inside. We spoke a bit, I calmed her down, and I told her to ignore Richard and go play with her siblings and her friends. Being a kid, she was thankfully easily distracted by something else and moved on. I didn't want to make a fuss with Jack or with Richard, so I just let it be. This turned out to be a mistake. About 30 minutes later, I heard Awesome scream and begin crying. I ran over to her. Richard had come up to her and knocked her hot dog out of her hand, saying she shouldn't eat that garbage. I handed Awesome over to my wife for damage control, and I took Richard aside and told him that A, don't ever talk to a man's kids without permission, B, don't ever teach a man's kids without permission, and C, you sure as shit don't ever touch a man's kids without permission. He doesn't have kids, so I still wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. This turned out to be a mistake. Instead of doing the mature thing and moving on, he decided to double down on the hot dog issue. This was the hill he was going to die on. My kids shouldn't be eating hot dogs. Keeping Jack in mind, I disengaged and told him to stay the F away from my family. For the rest of the RV, I kept my eye on him, and didn't come near them. Jack enjoyed. We all ate some good meat. End of the story as far as I'm concerned. This also turned out to be a mistake. A few days later, we received a visit from a child protection officer who claimed that we were neglecting our kids, specifically Awesome. She came in and saw that while the house could have been cleaner, what house with kids is spotless, everything was fine. She sat with Awesome for a few minutes and asked her some questions, said everything was fine, and left. First thing I did was call a friend of mine who's a lawyer, just to be on the safe side. He said it looked to him like we were in the clear, but we should just keep in touch with him just in case. Next, I began working the grapevine. It turned out that Richard had been offended by how I treated him after the hot dog incident, so he filed a false anonymous report. Being Richard and never thinking he could ever be wrong, he was even talking about it as if people should be proud of him for what he did. I had to make sure though, so last thing I did before dropping the hammer on him was confronting him personally. I set my phone to record and went to his house. He doubled down yet again, saying we were torturing Awesome. He's the one who called protective services on us, and he'd do it again in a heartbeat. This turned out to be a mistake. I'm not the violent type, but I swear I wanted to break the son of a bitch in half. I told him that if he came near myself or anyone in my family again, I'd have a restraining order put out on him, and I'd make sure every single one of our shared acquaintances knew why. I listened to the recording in my car, and his admission that he filed a false report came out clear as day. I immediately forwarded it to my lawyer, who said he'll get the ball rolling with some friends of his on the public prosecutor to see if we could get Richard in trouble using his admission. Still waiting on that, the wheels of justice turn slowly sometimes. Then I enacted my actual revenge. See, after he got his PhD, Richard bragged about the new flat he'd been moving into as soon as he sold his current flat. To that end, he renovated most of his current flat, including putting in lots of new and expensive features that required lots of electrical work. He did the same on his new flat. He did most of the electrical work himself, which is a big no-no unless you're licensed. I called in an inspector on both of his flats, who asked to see certification on who did the electrical work. Obviously there was no certification. It wouldn't surprise me if, Richard being Richard, he began arguing with the inspector that his work was good enough and he didn't need to pay someone else for him to do it. I haven't seen or spoken to Richard since, but I've heard that he had to bring in a certified electrician to examine every single change that he made in both flats. This meant dismantling everything and having it inspected. Turns out the buyers of his old flat weren't happy with the delay in receiving the keys and were even unhappier when they learned why there was a delay. They walked away from the deal and are taking him to court. Because his sale fell through, he's now in the hole of paying mortgages on 2 flats. I don't know if there was a fine levied against him, but I sure as hell hope so. Lesson of the story, don't ever F with a man's kids. That, my friends, sadly is the final story from today's video. If you're looking for more content and you enjoyed this, why not leave a like and check out our playlist, or just some of our other videos.